Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Bitcoin Business Bureau. I'm your host, as always, Litecoin Leader. Today is the 15th, big day yesterday, and it's a big week for cryptocurrency yet again. Bitcoin hit an all-time high. Coinbase went public. It went from $250, soared almost to $450, then came back into the 300s. Put the market cap of Coinbase at a very significant number, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But with Bitcoin going an all-time high, I want to mention that for a moment. Bitcoin in the last month, while everybody's fascinated by the fact it's hitting 63,000, 64,000, we talk a lot about altcoins. So lots of coins are in the green this week and this month. But as a comparable, you need to look at how Bitcoin is doing against not just the US dollar, but against the other altcoins and vice versa. Meaning that it's one thing for a coin to do well against the dollar. Most of them are doing well against the dollar. But how are they doing it against Bitcoin? We're competing not just against the US dollar in the market, but we're competing against Bitcoin. Otherwise, as I said before, don't invest in an altcoin if it can't beat Bitcoin. Bitcoin, that's the one you're competing against if you're in an altcoin. Otherwise, just buy Bitcoin. So looking back over the last month or so, Bitcoin has moved maybe 5%. Yes, 64,000 is a big number, as Cliff High likes to point out. But 60,000 was the number about a month ago. So now we've moved up maybe less than 10%. There's been a number of altcoins that have moved up significantly more than that time. And that's what you need to keep in mind as you try to grow your wealth, is you're competing not just against the US dollar, but also against Bitcoin. But let's bring it full circle. Let's talk about how, on a happy day yesterday, how Coinbase did and what it meant for the entire crypto market space. Now that the rush of curiosity and money has come to the Coinbase listing in its initial public offering, or actually direct public offering is the correct term, as it was listed today on the 14th of April for the first time on NASDAQ. It's the first direct public offering in NASDAQ's history, I believe. How did it really do? There's a lot of different stories that are being reviewed. There was a lot of hype around this. The price went up, it went down. Let's take a quick look at some of the news articles that are out there. And just like anything in the news these days, there's an inherent bias in a number of these stories. So let's just take a look and see if we can discern the real truth somewhere in between. So CNBC talked about someone who got paid in Bitcoin, but looking at the news results, it was mostly on the listings. And Coinbase had a landmark moment for crypto, according to the New York Times, which I thought was a good article, and we'll go over that last because I think it's probably the most fair piece that was done today that I came across. But Bloomberg seemed to be more of a negative bias on, as it said, it tumbled from its opening price. That is a jaded title, and that's often done in journalism, what passes for journalism these days. We will go over some of the different articles around the internet and how the viewpoints were on the day. So just looking at where we started, okay? We started on Monday the 12th, 2 days before the offering from Coinbase on NASDAQ. There's a lot of pump around it. There's 3 articles from Zero Hedge talking about this throughout the day. So on Monday the 12th, they talked about how Coinbase was going to be a landmark listing on NASDAQ and how this could really change the game for crypto and exchanges and everything else. So the initial price that was targeted, I believe it's in this one, it was $250. And there was some juggling back and forth. Some people pegged it at $600, somewhere in between. But you're looking at a market cap of $100 billion based on the 260 million plus shares that were outstanding that were going to be listed from Coinbase. Now, to put that in perspective, we'll get to that in a moment, but let's look at the second article. Second article, this talks more about the price target. So again, we have the listing here. Lisa Ellis of MoffettNathanson said that they were looking at $600 price target. Based on these numbers, and it wasn't the first major direct listing, based on these numbers, though, we're looking at, they said 750, they said 250, so based on these implied market caps, you're looking at 65 billion up to over $100 billion. Comparing that to the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, it eclipses them both. So that gives you the real perspective on what's going on here in 3 different stories. Here was Tuesday's article, and then Wednesday's article, where this seems to be a much more negative slant on the article today. Now, the headline's a bit jaded. Coinbase is crashing and dragging the market with it. That's a bit of a hyperbole, in my opinion. Now, you can't go by the author, because every author on Zero Hedge is Tyler Durden. If you're not familiar with that name, I'll just leave this right here.
Gentlemen, welcome to Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
So we won't go anything further about Tyler Durden, but it's the anonymity that affords that writer to say various opinions. And I'm sure there's more than one writer on Zero Hedge for the volume that they produce. So yes, Coinbase returned back to it peaked up at 430 and it came back down to 311. I wouldn't call that a crash, because it was originally coming out at 250, but it did return to some normal value at the end of the day. But keep in mind, it's $60 over where it was supposed to start. So as you get some more perspective, this article talks about how everything was crashing down with it. That's a bit much of hyperbole, but if you look down here further into the article, they said that here were the other coins the other stock listings that were already out there that were Bitcoin proxies, with MicroStrategy from Michael Saylor, PayPal and Square, and Tesla with Elon Musk accepting Bitcoin and investing in Bitcoin. All these coins, or all these companies associated with cryptocurrency, had a down day. That, plus the down market for Coinbase today, led this writer to say that it was a crash, which I think is a bit of hyperbole. So while this article is filled with a little bit of jaded discussions, let's look at some of the other articles out there across the internet. CoinDesk had an interesting article today that says Coinbase shares met with crypto volatility. First they soared and then they fell. Went back to close below opening price. Again, that's a little bit of a jaded viewpoint. Closing below the opening price, the rest of the article is a little bit more fair if you delve into it. It did say that it went over to 400, and then it did start the day at 381. Technically, it started at 250, but opened for real trading at 381 because it was bid up. So they're glossing over the fact that the initial offering price was 250, and it nearly doubled up to 400, and then came back down into the threes at the end of the day. So again, a little bit of a bias. One thing that's not pointed out that should be noteworthy is CoinDesk is owned by Binance. So Binance clearly has a bias against another exchange. I don't think that CZ wants to go public, but I think that you can make the argument that adding such value to an exchange like Coinbase would make Binance seem to be worth more, but at the same time there's a little bit of rivalry, so you could take that with a grain of salt based on what CoinDesk said today. A couple more articles to go over just the general concept of what's going on today. Barron's had a pretty good article. This was pretty even-handed, I would say. Their title was "The Coinbase IPO Lived Up to the Hype. Here's How It Did." And it went through the day. This was a pretty legitimate and even-handed article. But Bloomberg, I'm going to try and be careful about how I move the page, but $77 billion is bigger or comparable to all the stock exchanges, so it's bigger than NASDAQ. It's comparable to the New York Stock Exchange. I think that's a very important point that's getting glossed over. You're basically saying that the New York Stock Exchange is on par now with Coinbase, and Coinbase it's one of the bigger ones, but not the biggest one. But now you're saying that not only is Coinbase legitimate with the cryptocurrency market, but Coinbase as a market exchange, as a centralized exchange, is comparable to the New York Stock Exchange in valuation. That is a landmark moment, I would think, in the world of finance, and that they don't want to tell you, but it has to be known, and it will be known soon. And I think that even the New York Times, my personal opinion is that the New York Times article, I won't go through it all, but I would, if I was going to pick one article to read today, to know what's happened, not just today, but the last 3 months and a lot of things that are going on, perspectives on both sides of the fence, it'll be this article. And I think whoever wrote this, Aaron Griffith, did a fantastic job with this article. Very even-handed. It talks about everything I talked about so far about Coinbase at 250, up and down where the market cap is, comparables, some positives, some negatives, and also some viewpoints on cryptocurrency. Is it a bubble? Is it not a bubble? Who likes it? Who doesn't like it? It's all in this article. I think it's a very good article, and it kind of encapsulates everything that's that's happened in the last 3.5 months this year of 2021. It talks about Coinbase is making $1.8 billion in revenue in the first quarter, which is a big number. So if you're going to pick one article to read today about what happened at Coinbase, this would be the one. So there's a pretty good rundown of the news. We talked about Coinbase and how it did on its first day on the NASDAQ, the market cap and how it's comparable to almost every exchange in the world, if not larger, which is significant for cryptocurrency. You're basically, with Bitcoin hitting an all-time high, unbelievable amount of interest in it, a lot of it, corporate money, a lot of industrial money coming into the sector, and now Coinbase going public and being marketed so high and valuated so high. It just speaks to the value of the entire and the legitimacy of all cryptocurrency right now. So what happens next? What's the next exchange that's going to go public? What are the next coins to take a look at? Find out more. I want to play Altcoinopoly. With that said, I'm going to close the drawer on the bureau, and I'll see you next time. Wait a second before you go. I just wanted to remind you that Altcoinopoly started this week. We've had our first coin that was released on Monday. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's a free video that's out there and available for you to watch, along with the rules. But I will tell you that either Thursday or Friday, I can't say when, the first people that are subscribers over at LitecoinLeader.com are going to get their first glimpse of the second piece, which is only going to be available for subscribers. And I will tell you a few hints. It's below $1. It ties into a number of videos I've already made, such as about stable coins, about projects that might get a boost from Coinbase, as we were talking about just the other day in the Coinbase effect. And it's a coin floating around the top 100, right around that line where it's in that 90 to 110 area on CoinMarketCap. So that's enough hints for now. Okay, you're really gonna go watch over at LitecoinLeader.com and see what the second piece is for Altcoinopoly. So check it out. It's easy to subscribe, easy to play the game, big prize available. I'll see you at LitecoinLeader.com.